Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday morning. I hope you all had a great weekend. It is Monday. Yes, it is Monday. I lose track of time. Hey, I want to talk about gout this morning because I was asked to talk about gout. And it's not a topic that I've covered a lot, but I really want to dive in because there's some interesting news here. And I think that a lot of people really need to hear this. I know that my ex husband suffered with gout, it was extremely painful. And I mean, even though he's an ex, I wish I would have known this information when we were married so that I could have better helped him. Nobody deserves the kind of pain that gout delivers to your life. And yet there's a lot of lies and just stuff that's being passed off, as we found with so many other disorders that are passed off as knowledge when they were just conjecture or somebody had a great idea, but they didn't really have a lot of research behind it. So let's talk about what the reality of gout is and how you can actually start to address it. Yeah, there are some medications out there, but if you want a better way to address what's really causing your gout, put a stop to it and not have those flares and just feel better from it in the first place. Let's dive in because, yes, it's linked to insulin resistance, and we're going to go over how and why. There's a few things, you guys, in my years of learning, before I started actually doing research, I did the same thing as everybody else. I was like, oh, they say this, let's run there. And they say that, let's run there. And this is great, let's go and do that. And then all of a sudden I'm just doing all these crazy things. I still kind of do, but then later they're disproven. So now I like to kind of look at, not kind of, I like to look at and see, hey, is there some science behind this? Hey, what does science actually say about it? Am I on the right path or not? And then learning to listen to my own body and the intuition. So here we go with gout. Some of the things that we've been told about gout are that red meats are really bad for you and that they're going to create your increase in uric acid. And yet studies have shown that it's actually the opposite. So the diets that are higher in proteins, especially animal proteins, people are faring better with their gout than the people who are eating plant-based foods. Just realistically, I know some people are going to come at me. They're not going to like to hear that, but the reality is the reality. They've also said things like, oh, you know what used to be told to me all the time when my husband would have a gout flare up was give him cherry juice. Cherry juice is going to help that inflammation. Actually, you guys, spoiler alert, that is making it worse. So let's go into some pathways. Again, I kind of deliver information in an overarching method. I'm not going to dive into all the cytokines and the adipokines and all the inflammation pathways and stuff because that's not my specialty. I just want to give you guys real information. If you want more information on some of these pathways, there are plenty of people out there who really want to dive into that, who are qualified to dive into that part. So let's start with, I am not a doctor. I am not a nutritionist. I am not anybody particularly special, except for the fact that I suffered with almost everything up there. Thankfully, not gout. Thankfully, I never suffered with gout. But as I started getting better, and 111 is the number on my screen right now. That's amazing. So what I found is that insulin resistance really is linked to almost every disease and disorder we have today. When we talk about insulin resistance, because I'm going to get to the gout part, just for 1998, I think it was. No, it was a little later than that. There was a study that said 88% of us were metabolically unhealthy. A more recent study that's only a couple years old says that 93% of us are metabolically unhealthy. What does that mean? Really, it means that 93% of us are having a problem with insulin regulation. We're going to get into what insulin resistance is, what's causing it, and why this is important. But know that if we have something that's being said by scientists who are in the know that it's causing more than 90% of these issues, that's pretty damning information that we need to address this one thing. My family sometimes gets frustrated with me because they're like, oh, mom, everything is related to diabetes. And I'm like, oh, hell yes, it is. Yes, almost everything that we're suffering from links back to having too much insulin in our system, and gout is going to be another one of those things. So a couple of things that are happening here. And by the way, a couple of people that you could listen to about gout that are going to give you a lot more in-depth information would be maybe Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Ben Bickman, or who is the other one? Stan Ekberg might be able to give you some information on that. There are a lot of other good doctors out there, but some doctors who have really studied the uric acid and the gout pathways and the metabolic pathways would be those. I would look at Dr. Ken Berry or Dr. Ben Bickman. Now, so we've disproven that red meats are causing the problem. We've disproven that fats are causing the problem. And what really is causing the problem, can you guys guess what's causing the problem? Sugar is causing the problem. But more specifically, it's fructose that's causing the problem. Fructose, you hear me talk about it a lot. I think I really want to dive into a talk later this week about fructose itself, just fructose, and all the damage that it's causing in our body in the high amounts that we're getting it in today. And I'm not saying that, oh, we shouldn't eat any fruit or that fruit is the devil. I'm saying that we're overindulging in something that should be a treat. We've never, ever had as much of it as we have today, and it's causing a problem. Why fructose? Fructose relies on the liver specifically to digest it. It gets turned into an alcohol type thing in the liver called it's allopurinols. So those are all alcohols. Alcohols are actually some of the higher causes of gout than anything else that they've ever said that was there. Dr. Camberry talks very passionately about this and how this fructose that we're getting is really causing the biggest part of the problem. Inside the body, what's happening? Oh, there's so many myths that I want to talk about. I have a friend, and I do drink like hydrogenated water and distilled water, and I charge my water, and I believe in the fact that our water is dead and not hydrating us well. And I've actually noticed a difference in my skin by drinking hydrated water. All of that to say, she was talking about, oh yeah, it can change the pH balance in your body. The pH balance we really are looking at is in your blood. And there's not a whole lot that you can do that's going to change the pH balance in your blood. Your body's got that handled. Your body's going to take care of it. So eating too many tomatoes, is that going to make you more acidic in your blood? Probably not. Is eating more of an alkaline food going to make your blood more alkaline? Probably not. So let's get that off the table and understand that it's not necessarily about the alkalinity, but it really is about this production of uric acid and the alcohols. Now, when we have this excess alcohol, then we're having this problem now in the kidneys and with insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is being driven by this high amount of fructose that we're eating. Fructose that's now putting a load on your liver, but we're talking about your kidneys today a little bit because we're talking about them in relationship to inflammation and gout. So when insulin resistance hits your kidneys, it's causing a disruption in the kidneys that's causing an imbalance in the uric acid. And so the body is really holding on to more uric acid than it should. And when that's holding on to more than it needs, then that's ending up in your joints, in like your hands, your feet, sometimes people's knees and whatnot. They're painful, they're red, they're swollen because there's these deposits of uric acid. Is uric acid bad? Is uric acid horrible for us? No, it's not. Uric acid is really necessary in our body. But just like anything else, when we have too much of it or it's too concentrated, now we have a problem. But the driver for the kidneys to hold on to this uric acid really is sugar, and specifically fructose. So we need to understand that. Is drinking fruit juice going to be good for your gout? Nope. It's probably going to make your gout worse. And that includes cherry juice. Yeah, cherry juice is probably not the best thing you could do for your gout. I'm going to talk about what you can do for your gout in just a minute, but I want to talk about insulin resistance because gout really is another disease or disorder of inflammation. So when we look at inflammation in the body, and I've talked about this many, many times, where inflammation and insulin resistance are bidirectional. So let's take it from the inflammation standpoint. Say you have an injury, you have a surgery, you have, injury could be a burn, a cut, or whatever, and you have some inflammation go on in your body. This increased inflammation, and especially for a long period of time, can start to cause insulin resistance because those cytokines are starting to impair insulin pathways on the cell. So now, was it sugar that caused it? In this case, no. The inflammation started to mess with the insulin pathways, and that's causing insulin resistance. But when we look at the other side of it, and now we're eating too much sugar and we're causing too much insulin in the system then starts to have some inflammation body wide. And that inflammation can cause things like gout. It can cause things like neuropathy. It can cause things like brain fog and whatnot. But now insulin resistance is increasing inflammation. And then when we increase inflammation, insulin resistance gets worse. So really, if we can look at one key piece and getting one key piece better to help all of this, it would be address the insulin resistance, because you can't help if you fell down. Like I've had around 20 different broken bones and probably as many surgeries for injuries and accidents throughout my body. That's a lot of trauma on this whole body. That means I've had a lot of inflammation. That sets me up to be more insulin resistant. We cannot control those things. What I can control for my insulin resistance is that I get enough sleep, reducing inflammation, and I lower the amount of sugar that I'm eating. And I don't drink fruit juice anymore. And I really pay attention to getting in proteins and fats more than I do eating things that are high in sugars. And we're going to talk about what those are in a second. Any questions so far? Anybody that was suffering with gout? You guys, I want to say too, spurned by all these talks I do in the morning and the questions I have, these talks are held on YouTube. You can go back and find them. I know it gets complicated. I've been wanting to do a blog for a long time, so I can kind of categorize all of this information and put it out for you guys. So good news. By the end of the week, I'll have the blog live. There are already some articles up and running. This article will be in my blog, and I will post that on the social media outlets, and probably in my links for you to go find those and read some of the information and some of the more in-depth pathways and whatnot that I just can't rattle off my head, as well as links to the articles where this information comes from so that you guys can get the information you need in your life. So look for this one in that blog, and that will be opened up sometime by the end of this week. There'll only be a few articles in there to start, but we're going to be filling them up because I talk 5 days a week. All right, so let's talk about these questions that are coming in here. There was a filtered comment, so I don't know what that comment was because I cannot even see the filtered comment. What's supposed to help inflammation? I didn't catch the comment before that. So getting your insulin resistance under control will help your inflammation, but also getting enough rest will help your inflammation. Keeping yourself out of stressful situations is going to help inflammation. And yes, all this through multiple pathways can lead to your gout flare-ups, right? So it's a multi-factor approach. And I think I would love for everybody to understand that your health overall is a multi-factor approach. It's not like there's one magic pill, one magic thing that's going to help you get over everything. But when we look at insulin resistance, my view is this: insulin resistance is the elephant in the room, just like it has been with gout, and most people haven't been talking about it. If we clear that up, now we have a clean slate and we have a room that we can walk through and see what's going on and hopefully address what may be going on underneath all the mess that insulin resistance is causing. So I've got some notes. Of course, I've got notes. Where are they at? So we already talked about how inflammation is increasing pro-inflammatory cytokines, right? So when you have those inflammation and those pro-inflammatory cytokines, it's actually that inflammation has a propensity to have you store more fat. And as you're storing more fat, some of those pro-inflammatory cytokines are increasing and adipokines are increasing. And now you're increasing your inflammation and increasing the fat, and those fat cells are holding on to a lot of inflammation in the fat cells. And I think we have not addressed that a lot. When we talk about fat cells and insulin resistance, it's not pretty, right? And I've talked a lot about visceral fat and how damaging that can be to the body, and how um, that visceral fat, the fat that's in and underneath your muscle wall of your stomach, can start to crowd out organs and cause problems. But those fat cells are also increasing the insulin resistance, and again, bidirectionally worsening the problem. So yeah, losing weight is going to be one of the indicators to help you with your gout. But how do you lose weight? Because most people don't understand. It's not just about, oh, I ate too much. There's that, but it's what you eat, and it is different for everybody. So you need to start figuring out what is healthy for your body. Because maybe I can eat a banana and have it not spike my glucose that much. You might eat a banana and it might shoot your glucose through the roof. So things like lumen and whatnot, they're expensive, but they're worth it if you really want to start to understand what foods you can eat specifically to address all of this stuff. All right. So when we look at those pathways, that's inflammation causing some of this insulin resistance. And then again, insulin resistance, it's increasing free fatty acids, which are increasing your fat cells. What I started to talk about with fat cells is a couple of things happen as we start to lose weight. Some of that inflammation does go back out into the body. Some of the sugars that are stored in there do go back out into the body. And so, if you have a really bad insulin resistance problem, a really bad glucose regulation problem, and now you have a glucagon resistance problem, and your thyroid is not working and all of these things, as you start to lose weight, you could see an increase in blood sugars and some inflammation that's starting to be released from the body. um, so getting the fat down is going to be really important, and understanding why you're getting fat is really important too. So insulin resistance is this thing where when we eat too much sugar, we're creating too much insulin. We have too much insulin. Eventually, the body starts to shut down to the signals of getting insulin into the cells. Why insulin, insulin, insulin? Insulin is delivering the sugar, which is energy, into your cells. When the cells are resistant to it, it means they're not getting energy, so they are not functioning properly, along with all of these other issues that are happening. When the cells start to become resistant to insulin and it has no place else to put that sugar, it's going to start putting it in your fat cells. Now, your fat cells, as they grow and get too big, they're starting to become inflammatory. And now you're increasing your risk of things like edema and gout and a number of other inflammatory issues. So, absolutely, getting your weight down is important, but understanding that your weight is most likely coming from a resistance to insulin, and then understanding what's happening to cause you to be insulin resistant so that you can reverse all of that is really the key. And it's simple. We're eating foods that are just too high in glucose. And so we're going to talk about things like processed grains. When we look at people who suffered with gout in history, we're going to maybe talk about King Henry VIII, right? He had a really bad problem with gout, but look at his lifestyle. He was fairly sedentary. He ate a lot of fruits and really overindulgent foods and baked goods and grains and whatnot. And although he had proteins available, I would say that he ate primarily a lot of food. There was a lot of sugar, a lot of fruit, and a lot of alcohol. Now he has a gout problem. So is it just something that's happened in the last 50 years, which I've said many times? No, it's not. But when we look at the average population, it's not been as prevalent, right? When we have populations who have been able to overindulge and just have food at their whim, yeah, it's a problem. When we look at peasants who maybe were continually being fed grains because it was cheap and they started suffering, maybe there's a problem with that. Maybe they weren't getting in enough protein and they weren't getting in enough fats and they weren't getting in enough of the good vegetables and fruits that were saved for, you know, the people with better blood. And so they might have suffered with it because there's an imbalance in the food that we're eating. Now we add to that over the last 50 to 100 years that we've changed our farming practices. We've changed how our foods look, taste, and digest, and now we have an exacerbated problem. But gout is definitely linked to insulin resistance, and it's another one of those things that can't say that insulin resistance causes 100% of gout, but the percentage up there and the link between insulin resistance and gout is so high that it's almost impossible to ignore the fact that insulin resistance is a leading cause of all of this disruption, starting with your kidneys not being able to filter uric acid properly so that it's building up in your body. And then all of the other inflammation that insulin resistance is causing throughout your body. Now that's ending up in your joints, and you have pain that is excruciating. So you want the pain to go away. Stop eating all the fruits. Stop drinking alcohol. Get rid of the grains out of your life. And look, maybe that's not the news you wanted to hear today, but do you want to be able to put your shoe on? Do you want to be able to lay a blanket on your foot at night or even a sheet on your foot at night because it's so painful? Then those three things are things you need to stop. Stop alcohol, fruit juice, grains. That's going to help improve your uric acid, this whole gout thing in the first place, so much more than you can imagine. Pouring loads of cherry juice, no matter the proponents in it that they say are healthy for your gout, you're adding a lot of fructose into your diet, which is then exacerbating the problem. And I can say that all of the times that my ex-husband had a flare up of gout and I ran to the store and got the purest cherry juice I could get, or even better yet, we lived in an area where cherries were abundant and I would make cherry juice from scratch for him because that's the kind of girl I am. Um, Never once did it stop a gout flare up for him. Never once. Never, ever, ever once did that cherry juice stop or ease a gout flare up for him. You have PCOS and you've been struggling since you were 15. You're so confused on what to eat. The biggest thing you can do to eat is pretty much the same thing. If you have PCOS, you've got to watch the sugars, the packaged processed sugars especially, and fruit juices. You guys, we if we look back at our history, outside of wine, we really never drank fruit juice. This is something that's new that we just are not meant to have. So PCOS, cut out the fruit juice. Watch the sugar. Stay away from boxed packaged foods and eat as many whole foods as you can. Focus on proteins and fats. It's the same answer for almost everything. Focus on proteins and fats and do some intermittent fasting. We're eating too much. A friend of mine is over in Italy and she just posted a video and she said, she was shocked on the beaches in Italy that nobody has snacks laying out. Aloha. I did not get to Hawaii this year and it's still a place I really want to go. So thank you for saying aloha for me to from Hawaii, right? Okay, so PCOS is going to be pretty much the same thing. You guys, I don't have the book sitting in front of me, but Dr. Ben Bickman wrote a book called Why We Get Sick. And so in that book, he has a food list in the back. The book is less than $15. Go to Amazon, get the book. There's a food list there for you, telling you what to eat and how often to eat all of that stuff. Now, he also has, and I don't get paid for any of this stuff. I just love Dr. Bickman and his information. But he has a book coming out, I believe it's July 11th, called How Not to Get Sick. And that is a cookbook and a little bit more information with a food list. I'm not going to prepare a food list because look, nobody's going to do it better than the guy who spends his whole life writing or looking at metabolism. So get his book coming out July 11th. In the meantime, get his book and start reading some of the recommended foods on his list. By the way, stop avoiding animal proteins. I have been all around the gambit. Look, I'm a spiritual person too. And I've been through the thing where people said, oh, you've got to cut out animal meats and you've got to, if you want to evolve spiritually and you want to, then you've got to eat plant-based and whatnot. That's a whole other topic. I tried all that. I did all that. It did not work for me. I did not feel better. I did not feel more clear. I did not feel more close to spirit doing all of that stuff. So the truth is, as human beings, we were basically designed to be eating meat. And so that's a hard truth. Just get in some protein. One of the biggest reasons we're so sick, having all of these problems, is we're relying so much on packaged and sugared foods that and less on proteins. And more people, you'll see so many other people out there saying that one of the best ways to start getting your health back is to eat about a gram of protein per pound of body fat. Dr. Gabrielle Lyon talks about it. Who was I seeing her with and they did a collaboration because it's another doctor I follow. Anyway, you guys, protein is super important. I'm not saying that plant foods are not important, but let's just stop trying to fool ourselves into believing that we're going to be healthy in ways that we're just not meant to. Plus, as I say all the time, and I want to reiterate, there's some basics, right? Some basics that we all can do, but the specific foods that you eat are going to be different and react differently in your body and for your genetics than they will for mine. So find some time to figure that out. I've been on that journey for the past few years, and I'm now like, no, this food is going to cause me to be really sick. Every once in a while, I'm foolish. I eat that food anyway because it tastes good. The reward was not worth the pain that I felt. Start paying attention to how foods feel for you, because maybe somebody can eat corn and you can't. You got to figure that out. Um, Biome gut testing. So you guys, and so as I'm talking about this, one of the things I thought about this morning, that scanner that I got, I talked about, and it will be, I'm also putting up a new website by the end of the week. And so the scanner will be in there. And anything else new that I'm doing is going to be in there. The scanner, I do a scan 3 times a day, based on some of the work by like Terrence Howard and a number of other people who deal with wave and energy, but it is able to tell me everything that's going on in my body, down to my gut, and all of the stuff that I have available to me. It's in there, and it can tell me what I need or don't need in a day based on what's going on with my body at that point. So I agree with testing because I do it for myself. I ran a scan this morning. One of the very first things I do is I put my bone conducting headset on. I run a scan. I see what's going on with my body. Now, because I have energy problems, oftentimes it's going to tell me that I need Unamate or matcha in the morning. But sometimes, like today, it had some immune support. I hyperextended my knee and hurt it. So there's a lot of joint support and inflammation stuff that's going on for me right now. But scanning for your body specifically, so you can understand what's going on, I absolutely agree with that. That's the best way you're going to get to start to carve out where your health and wellness is. Now, there's a couple of truths though, right? So the 6 simple tips I talk about all the time, and I've gotten into this thing where I love the system that I talk about so much, but not only do I want to know, okay, how's insulin resistance related to things like gout, which we know there's not a doubt that insulin resistance is causing a malfunction in the kidneys. That kidney malfunction is causing a buildup of uric acid. That buildup of uric acid is ending up in your joints. That all begins with too much sugar and too much insulin in the body. Very, very directly related. Okay. But I don't even know where I was going with that now. Insulin resistance, gout. All right. So I just lost myself completely, you guys. All right. If there are any questions about gout, let me know. I do want to talk about that. But that's what it was. I started looking up how does yerba mate tea help with this? If it helps at all, can it help? How does fiber help with this? And the other day I talked about diverticulitis. Didn't appear to be a lot of help from the chlorogenic acids or the yerba mate, a lot of help from the fiber. This one, the gout, and I've got to look it up here. The gout, there is a lot of science between how yerba mate can help reduce the inflammation in your body, antioxidants, anti-inflammatory components of yerba mate tea, which is highly concentrated in the tea that I talk about and that I'm drinking this morning. And so what they're saying is, yeah, that tea could actually help with reducing that inflammation and reducing the flare-ups of gout. Now, there's no specific study on Unimate and gout, but there are studies out there on yerba mate and gout. And when we look at your Unimate being so much more potent than any standard yerba mate, that's promising. So now we have a tea that can drastically help reduce that inflammation. So instead of cherry juice with a gout flare up, I would just be drinking Unimate every day. And then fiber is helping through a number of ways. It's helping get that excess uric acid out through your poop. It's moving it on through. So it's not building up in your body and causing joint inflammation. It's causing a better gut microbiome, which can help with inflammation. And that's going to help with the gout as well. And there's a number of other pathways for that. I will put all of that in. There may be a couple of separate blog posts on gout. We'll see how that turns out, but that will show up in the blog post, so you guys can go read that later this week. But the two components in the system that I did to help reverse my insulin resistance, through some other studies, have been shown that they could help with gout. And I think that's important. One of the reasons I love the system, and so I did some research. I'll do a video on the difference between berberine and this, and some of the components of why the fiber that we're using is actually doing better than berberine, because it's a multi-action approach. But it's amazing to me how well these products are working for people with insulin resistance and getting over things like gout. So if you have questions, let me know. I'd love to include that information. But I feel like I've been rambling a little bit this morning. Gout is something that I wish more people could understand, that it really isn't about cutting back red meats and whatnot, or cutting back fats. There's been such a big fat lie that it's actually causing us to be more unhealthy when we don't understand fats and how they play a role in our body and what kind of fats to eat. We're confused. So the fats you should be eating are things like extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, butter, ghee, and the animal fats that we eat normally. One of my family members said, "Oh yeah, I lost my gallbladder because I was eating a lot of really fatty foods, and so I just shouldn't eat those." That's not true. If you're eating a lot of trans fats, that will be true. Trans fats and a lot of the seed oils are also causing inflammation. And according to Dr. Berry, some of those seed oils that I talk about, that there's a whole big debate out here on the net about whether seed oils are good for you or bad for you. But I'm on the camp that they're bad for you. And Dr. Berry solidified that a little bit more for me as I was doing this research, because he talked about the inflammatory response of these seed oils and how that inflammatory response is directly impacting gout. So I said fruits, fruit juice, alcohol, and grains. But the fourth thing then would be seed oils. If you want to take care of your gout and not have those painful flare-ups, you got to get rid of the seed oils out of your diet as well. So there's that. Now, the system that I do that has the chlorogenic acids and the tea and everything that I've been talking about is this. I cannot find my tea packets. So this is it, the tea. I have 2 of these in a day, and I have this before I eat my meals. Now, the new system is 2 of these and 1 fiber before your meals, and I can go over that why. But now that I understand a little bit more, and as I learn, it's just making me more and more in love with the system. As I do just indiscriminate research on all the stuff you guys ask about. But again, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, antioxidant properties in this tea. Having it twice a day actually is helping keep the inflammation down. I want to say, even though I hyperextended my knee and caused a lot of damage in my one native knee, and it was so painful that I could hardly walk on it one day, it's healing up way quicker than I would have thought it would heal up. In fact, I was back out doing my walk this morning, a little bit of pain, but only a couple of days after not being able to walk at all, I'm back up and out walking. And I give a lot of the credit to that, to the dietary changes I've made, the antioxidant, anti-inflammatory components in this tea that I drink all day long, and the fiber helping keep all of the toxins cleaned out of my system. So the fiber, I've been doing this in the mornings, and you guys, I actually do drink this in the mornings, whether I'm on live or not, because I have a very acidic gut, and I've talked about it many times, how this helps with that. And by the way, when your gut acids are up, yeah, you're having some inflammation go on in your body. So we just want to take care of that. Just tore the top off. I pour it in. It's about 5 grams of fiber. So some people will be, well, that's not a lot of fiber. It's not just about the grams of fiber, it's the type of fiber. 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers or insoluble fibers in this. Fibers are non-digestible carbohydrates. So although it has a carbohydrate count to it, it doesn't digest. Soluble and insoluble, we're going to explain that, but I got to drink this because it's going to get too thick, like rapidly. So this starts to soothe that acidic stomach of mine. It also gives me great fibers in my gut so that my probiotics, the good gut bacteria, are now having something to feed off of. In a fasted state, which I am now, it's creating more short chain fatty acids, which are telling my body, hey, we want to burn fat for fuel, and helping me produce more ketones. Does not break my fast. Does not break my fast. Tea does not break my fast. So in the morning when I have this, what it's doing is, besides soothing this really acidic gut that I have, it's helping me with all of these other properties, feeding my gut microbiome, helping me produce more ketones. The tea itself helps me produce more ketones. Now I have energy and mental clarity, and I can get through the day. 3 years ago, I was laying down inflamed and tired, and it was like 2 to 3 naps during the day, and I was just so fatigued all the time. It was unbelievable. Doesn't happen to me now. I go to bed, I sleep at night, I wake up. I'm not suffering with the sleep apnea that was waking me up 60 times a night. By the way, I believe it was Dr. Berry that was talking about sleep apnea and gout. So there is a big correlation between gout and sleep apnea. And guess what? Gout and sleep apnea are also very bidirectionally linked to insulin resistance. So we're going to come back to the one key piece. But if you're not sleeping well and you track and you have gout, you're going to notice that your gout flare-ups are worse when you're not getting enough rest. Again, rest is important for everybody, whether it's gout, whether it's PCOS, whether it's menopause, whether it's anxiety or depression or any of these things. Sleep is super important. So the tea you can get in my profile, you're just going to go right up here to the link, and there is right under the red lights, there is a link there. It's a part of a system called the Feel Great system. You want to get it from someone like me. You're going to get a 90-day money-back guarantee. You're going to get coaching from me. You're going to get help. You're going to get a low price guarantee and a quality guarantee. So if you go on to any other website and buy that, you're not getting any of the guarantees or the coaching. Plus, you're paying more money. There is no one that I've talked to that bought it on any of those Amazon, Walmart, eBay, any of those sites that got it for less, and then they're not getting guarantees and coaching. So just use the link, and I'd be happy to help you. So I'll get the link in over on Facebook and YouTube here in a minute as well. You guys, this tea has drastically changed my life. And again, I wish that I would have known about it. If I could have gotten my stubborn old ex to drink the tea, it would have probably saved him a lot of really painful days. He was kind of a crabby old bear anyway, and then when you put gout on top of it, it was not a pretty situation, and I can't blame him. It's painful. It looked painful. I can't imagine the pain that goes along with it. Thank goodness that's one thing I never suffered with. But the tea and the fiber help. So let's talk about that. When I looked up, can yerba mate help? When I was doing the research on it, so polyphenols and saponins in the yerba mate tea, and remember this is highly concentrated. So it's ethically and sustainably harvested, it's extracted and highly concentrated, but then it's taken through a fifth step where we purify it so that PAHs and environmental toxins are removed from this product where you're not getting that from other yerba mate products. It's got 375 times more chlorogenic acids in it than any standard yerba mate product out there. And that's really important when we start looking at a number of things, including mental well being and physical well being. So, this tea, all of the proponents of yerba mate that I'm going to talk about are amplified with this tea because of the concentration and purification properties of it. So in the tea, how does it affect gout? Those polyphenols and saponins help, like the chlorogenic acid, one of the main components in this that's just so amazing, help with uracilic acid, and they've been shown to inhibit the activity of xanthine oxidase, and all of that means it's reducing inflammation in the body. So it's increasing all. So this, remember, gout is when your body's holding on to uric acid and that uric acid is kind of settling into your joints. The proponents in this tea help you with the excretion of uric acid so you're not holding on to too much. And so yerba mate, the studies were done on yerba mate. Again, this is a highly potent form of it, have been shown to help with that uric acid excretion, which is going to reduce the gout flare ups in your system. And then the antioxidant, anti inflammatory effects of this, those polyphenols and saponins help protect the kidneys from oxidative stress and can contribute to kidney. That can contribute to kidney dysfunction and impaired uric acid excretion. So healthy for the kidneys, helps increase uric acid excretion, helps reduce the inflammation that's causing uric acid to build up. So yeah, would this be key? Mark high. And then it can help with lowering lipids. So lipids in anything that we're talking about are not necessarily the dietary fats you're eating, as far as like coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil. What we're getting these lipids from primarily are excess sugars and fructose in the system. So again, cut those out. If you have gout, the hard truth is you've got to stop all of that sugar in your system. You want to have no pain and you want to not have flare-ups. You got to get that sugar out of your system. The tea is going to help you with all of these things in excreting uric acid, all of that. So I love the tea for that. But then when we look at the fiber, how does fiber actually help with gout? And I'm linking some stuff together because we're talking about insulin resistance and how it affects gout. And now we're talking about how can you help that? Well, instead of taking a drug, allopurinol, or any of these other drugs that may be causing other side effects, instead of forcing the body to do things that it's not, why don't we support the body to do things that it should be doing, like getting rid of the proper amounts of uric acid, like not holding on to inflammation, like not holding on to fat cells that are causing more inflammation, all of that. Fiber helps with this. Fiber helps in reducing uric acid production. So when we have this bulk in the stool, we're talking about the soluble fibers. So when we look at this, which is primarily an insoluble fiber, this isn't going to help. This, because it has the soluble and insoluble fibers in it, and soluble fibers are the ones that really show to help with gout. This, then I would make the link, could help. Is that a claim the company makes? I'm going to be careful and say no, but I want you to understand how fiber can affect gout and that this is containing 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers, and that's really important because we want that full approach to dealing with any of these things. Sorry, my voice is getting crazy. So how is that helping? It's helping increase the gut transit rate, and that means that fecal bulk and urine flow even are moving through and eliminating through the body more properly than they are now. One thing that most people who have poor diet insulin resistance can attest to is that there's some gastrointestinal discomfort and dysfunction, and that's part and parcel of the disorder, right? But what we want to know is that this increased fiber is helping that elimination. So we're not having that toxicity sitting in our system and we're getting it cleared out. But having the right kind of fiber is helpful. And that means soluble fiber for gout, not the insoluble, but the soluble is the one that's shown to do more work. So again, this stuff, the insoluble fiber is really not going to make that big of an impact. So the same thing when I talked about short chain fatty acids. What's happening with short chain fatty acids? This fiber then ferments in your gut a little bit. Your probiotics in your gut are feeding on it, creating those short chain fatty acids. And those are helping improve your insulin response by helping you with ketones and whatnot. Again, it's an amazing thing. I have no idea. You guys, when I started the system, I had no idea all of these amazing benefits. And thank you for asking questions because now I get to learn about more of the stuff with this because I didn't spend my lifetime studying it. I'm just here helping because it helped me. So, and also fiber it's pretty well known that increased fiber helps reduce inflammation by clearing out the gut, by clearing out all the things we've talked about. Fiber is going to help reduce inflammation, and inflammation, remember, creates more insulin resistance and can lead to things like gout and neuropathy even. So there are several epidemiological studies in different populations, and that's important because it's not just like one small group and one genetic pool was studied, but this is several different populations had dietary fiber intake lower the levels of hyperuricemia, which means that the concentration in your urine then is normalized. It's not so dense, and urinary tract infections and all of this stuff are slowed by regulating that excretion from the kidneys. I'm trying to find words that make sense. I hope that makes sense. So the fiber and the chlorogenic acids in the tea can do a great thing. I mean, look, if you've got gout and you've tried everything else, why not just give it 90 days to see if reducing the blood sugars, increasing this yerba mate and fiber can help you with your flares. And if you're one of those people who has gout and you try it for 90 days, and I would love to know. I would love to know how it affects you because that's not one of the things I suffered with. So it's not one of the things that I can specifically speak on. But understand that both components of the system really work well for that. I've done a lot of other videos on those both components, and they're in the list on TikTok now. With the blog coming up, a lot of these things like the calculations and all of that stuff are going to go into the blog, and they're going to be tabbed, so you'll be able to go find them. You'll be able to find information on the tea. You'll be able to find information on fiber, not just this tea, but just how yerba mate, chlorogenic acids are affecting your health and improving your health as well as fiber. But you're also going to find a lot of information on things like psoriasis was the thing that I talked about the other day. So the psoriasis article is already there. This article will go in. And then just articles, I've linked some articles from the company on the benefits of the system because it can really help people get better. So there was PCOS. I had written down on my list this week to talk about that I really wanted to talk more about fructose and let people know a little bit of some surprising information I found out about fructose, especially in regards to the glycemic index. Some things we're not being told. So I wanted to do a day talking about that. I would also love to talk more about inflammation and specifically how insulin resistance is causing inflammation in the system, because that inflammation is linked then into things like gout and joint pain and uh, neuropathies and a number, and even autoimmune disease. So just in doing the research, those are things that I came up with that I would love to talk about. If there's something you guys want me to talk about, like PCOS, is a really common topic. We can talk about PCOS again this week. I'd love to cover that. Blood pressure, heart disease is one I like to talk about a lot because it's so relevant to insulin resistance. So let me know what you'd like me to talk about next. But for those people who are asking about gout, gout is definitely highly correlated to insulin resistance. And if you've been suffering for years and you can't seem to get it under control, one of the things Dr. Ken Berry said was get rid of the knowledge that they've been telling you about gout and how to eat, throw it out. And the same stuff I'm telling you to do to eat with insulin resistance is what you want to do for your gout. Hey, Dale. So those things are fiber first. And we've talked about why fiber, especially for gout and uric acid and all of this, fiber is going to be important. And remember, soluble fiber, which there's soluble fiber in this and not in this, is going to help. So fiber first, prioritize protein. A lot of people have been told or thought or taught that protein was really bad for gout. Now, Dr. Ken Berry, so Dr. Ben Bickman deals with metabolism and has linked into this and is a huge proponent of protein and how healthy it is for the body. Dr. Ken Berry was talking a lot about how protein is actually really good for gout and that all of that old information that we had that you shouldn't be eating animal proteins and stuff because it's going to cause more gout is wrong. It's a lie. Stop it. Start doing these things. Fiber first. Prioritize protein. Eat healthy fats and don't fear the healthy fats, meaning seed oils, canola oil, corn oil, grapeseed oil, all of that stuff. You guys got to get rid of it. I can do a whole talk on oil someday if you guys want to, because it's impactful. It's just as impactful for insulin resistance, in my opinion, as sugar because of the inflammatory components of these seed oils. So fiber, protein, fats, limit your carbs. If you have gout, you're going to be one that has to limit your carbs even more. So boxed processed foods, you got to realize they're broken down. And so that broken down form of grains and whatnot is going to convert into glucose much quicker than a whole grain ever would have. But they also have a lot of added sugars. So now you're doubling down on the problem. Get rid of the fruits and fruit juices for you with gout. And then you want to, this is so important. And I do want to mention this. I found out some information. That's why I love doing this research because I always find little nuggets. But you've got to do some intermittent fasting to get your body more metabolically healthy. You're not going to die. You're not going to waste away. You're not going to cause yourself muscle loss, any of that by doing some intermittent fasting. Dinner last night for me. What did I have for dinner? Oh yeah, I had junk food for dinner. I had a chicken sandwich with bacon and some Cajun sauce on it and whatnot. That was dinner. Not probably not the healthiest dinner I had all weekend, but that was dinner. Still really high on protein, but more carbohydrates than I'd like. But that was at about 5 p.m. So it's 9:30. So I'm already 16 and a half hours into a fast. Am I dying? Am I angry? Am I wasting away and tired? And do I have brain fog? No. Actually, during fasting, your heart gets stronger, your mental acuity gets better. So that's important. And then move your body. So this is the piece I wanted to talk about. And Ro, I see you. Yes, I'll do something on seed oils because it's so important to me. And there's a guy out there who wears it cracks me up because he wears scrubs and a stethoscope to give himself weight for what he talks about. And guys, like I have scrubs and a stethoscope too. I put them on one day just to prove a point. Like, come on. I can put scrubs and a stethoscope on just like anybody else. I have them. I used them. I know how to use them. But it doesn't mean that all of the information is proper. So when I listen to actual people who are dealing with these issues, they will say that fasting is important. They will also say that seed oils are so damaging. So I'll put that on my list and we'll do seed oils at some point this week as well. Now, the part that I wanted to talk about. Y'all know that I really believe in getting out and walking. I haven't been doing well for myself with that. I've been trying to do better, so I've been walking about 3 times a day. And I'd always heard walk right after you eat, right? I'm not going to deny that, not going to argue it, not going to anything. But what I found is just this little tiny tweak. When you're thinking about doing that 10-minute walk, that 15-minute walk after you eat, wait, wait 1/2 hour. What studies are showing is that even more than walking before you eat, even more than walking a half an hour after or walking right after you eat, waiting that half hour is going to help you become more insulin sensitive. And here's why. And it makes sense to me that, as we eat, it takes 20 to 30 minutes for that stuff to start digesting through, for that sugar to really hit your small intestine and start to be increasing your insulin, and your insulin is looking for a place to store it. So what if you ate your dinner, you did the dishes, you did a few things, and a half an hour, 1/2 hour after you eat, then you take your 10-minute walk. Now, as the sugars are hitting your system, they're being soaked up by muscles that are moving. You're becoming exponentially more insulin sensitive by putting that activity at that half-hour point, rather than right after. Is that helpful? Does that make sense to anybody else? Because it was like for me. So now what I want to do is set a timer so that when I'm done eating, when the half hour mark goes off, my tennis shoes will be on. I'll go out for my little brisk walk that I do, and I'm good. Or I use an app called Walk Fit. There's so many apps out there, but just an app to move. I mean, if you don't feel like you can get out and walk, find some kind of exercise to do, but do it at a half hour after you eat, and that will help your insulin sensitivity. But also understand that weight bearing exercise is a must. You have to put some weight on your muscles at some point. And I'm not talking about crazy powerlifting like I used to do. You don't have to bench 300 pounds or squat 400 pounds or any of that. Just put a little extra weight, 5, 10, 20, 50 pounds on, and move your body, and make it work. And you're going to become more insulin sensitive. So is it all about the food? No. But is this tremendously helping me? This tea that I drink in the morning, I'm so surprised every time I ask, which is something I just started doing. As you guys ask me about these things, I'm like, okay, well, there's all that information, but how does this link in? And like I said, psoriasis, I found this really didn't have a lot of outside of like anti-inflammatory help. This had a lot of help, but now with gout, both of these, there's a lot of science that shows how yerba mate and fiber, especially soluble fiber, can help with gout. So it's always interesting to me to find those pieces. And tomorrow we'll talk a little bit more about inflammation. At some point this week, I will talk about seed oils because I think it's so important for you to understand why. Now, with that, with the seed oils, I want to say I went to dinner with my sister, who I haven't seen in years. She's from Montana. Her husband is from New Zealand. A lot of backstory, right? But my niece just moved to Florida to become a midwife. Her husband's family is there. So my brother-in-law and his parents, who flew over from New Zealand, decided to take a bike trip. I was mistaken. I thought it was across country, but what they did was they started down in the tip of Florida, and they're riding their bikes all the way up to Maine. So they were along the coast here, and I was able to go have dinner with them. The bigger part of that story is, although it was a lovely place, this place that reminded me of someplace up in North Idaho, a bar, restaurant, family there, band, music. They had a beach outside where the kids were playing, and the food was good, but I got really sick. And then I realized, yeah, they cooked everything in seed oil. Maybe the seed oils weren't changed as much as they should have been, but I had a really bad gastritis attack that night. Even though the food tasted good, that oil caused me to be sick. And now I can see it because when I have days where I'm not sick and inflamed, and then I get a hold of foods that cause it, now it's pretty obvious. Seed oils are so damaging. It's insane. And they're just toxic. So we'll do a talk on that later this week because I think it's important. And it's important in regards to your health. And Marilyn, the tea is called Unamate, but I'm going to put a link up here for you guys to be able to go get that tea. And I would love to be your coach and help you with that. The thing is, when you order, Marilyn, you actually get text from me and you get to talk to me and ask questions, and I help where I can. Not a doctor, not a nutritionist. I'm just a real woman who went through all of this stuff or most of this stuff, like you guys are all going through, and got better. So I can share the information I have and take a look at some things and help you that way. Why is this not happening for me? There it goes. So there's the link to be able to order it. Guys, it costs about $5 a day. One of the things and I talk about this a lot, but I'm leaning into it more myself because if you followed my journey, there was a part in time where I was really hesitant to talk about it because, it's costing money and whatnot. But here's the thing. I didn't think I could afford it in the beginning. Now there's no way I would not afford it. If I have to skip other things to have this in my life and have my health back, damn straight I'm going to spend $5 a day. You're welcome, Marilyn. I really hope it helps. You guys, I don't spend an hour talking about this stuff just because of whatever. I want to help people. And so the more information you guys can get and the more help it is to you, then that's a blessing on my life. So thank you for being here with that. But the system really changed everything for me, even after injuring my knee, which was really silly, but I injured it pretty bad. Just the fact that I can still go up and down stairs, which I couldn't 3 years ago, and all of the other stuff that's changed for me in my life, and all of the messages that I get, which I admittedly have to do better about sharing, um, it's just a blessing. Like my little grandson that I get to go and do stuff with him and go on picnics with him, and even though my knee was hurting, I was walking the piers with him and being out and being active, which again, injury or not, 3 years ago I wouldn't have been able to do. This is just amazing, you guys. When you get your insulin resistance under control, you will be shocked. But I want you to stay focused on your health. I gave a lot of thought to this weekend too, and because it comes up, in our field, in our own field, the things that we need to hear or the things that we're focused on just seem to come up more. I don't know, if life has an algorithm, but it just seems to come up more. But in my algorithm of life, what's been coming up more is this whole fact of two things. You've got to make change to see change, and change isn't always going to be comfortable. But the second thing is what we focus on is what shows up in our life. So if we're focused on being sick and holding on to being sick and holding on to not getting better and focusing on all the things that aren't going right, we're never going to see what's right, and we're never going to have more of what's right. Because whether this is the spiritual side, right? If we're so focused on that, that's what we're bringing in. And if we're on one hand saying, well, God loves me, or the creator loves me, and I deserve a better life, and yet what we're saying and we're putting out is that we're all focused on the negativity all the time, we're not going to get much of the good coming in. That's true no matter what. So as you're doing the system, what I want people to focus on is notice the things that are getting better. For me, there were so many things. It's really hard for me to believe where I was 3 years ago. Skin tags are gone. Skin discoloration is gone. Inflammation is down. In fact, I couldn't see my kneecaps 3 years ago because there was so much inflammation in my joints. My feet would be swollen up so much that they looked like little stuffed piglets on the end of my legs at the end of the day. Just so many little things that had nothing to do with my weight, but all of these little things that were getting better. And the more I focused on the little things that were getting better, allergies were getting better, mental clarity was getting better, sleep was getting better, all of those things, then it gave me ground to want to stay more consistent. I don't care whether it's this system or something else. If you cannot focus on the good changes that are happening, you will not see the reward in doing what you're doing. So make that shift in your mindset. Try the system, you guys, 90 days. 90 days and focus on what's happening, right? And I'm going to tell you, not just me, but the company gives you a guarantee that you will feel better or they're going to give you your money back. But it starts with you. It starts with you making a change, you understanding what's going on, and focusing on the positive outcomes and the positive aspects of what's happening in your life. I mean, I could buy a brand new beautiful car, and if all I did was focus on all the little things that I perceived were wrong with it, I would hate that car. Or I could focus on the amazing things that are good with it and love the car. And again, it's true with anything. So, with that, I'm going to go work on this content, make some calls, and we'll talk tomorrow about inflammation. We'll talk later this week about seed oils. So, that's probably one you don't want to miss. There's a lot of information about how damaging they are and how they're linked to insulin resistance. You guys, it's not just the sugar. You got to get the seed oils out. And but in the meantime, this tea that I have every morning is helping me tremendously. And everyone in my life that does the tea has noticed. I mean, this is the one thing that they can't get rid of. For me, I love the fiber because I had such bad IBS and gut problems that it's helped me tremendously, and I will never live without it. Thank you, Ro. Have a great day. All right, you guys, I'm going to go now, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a good one. Thanks, Marilyn. We'll talk to you soon.